We are Purpose Power Presence for those of us who are new to what we do. Liz and I founded Purpose Power Presence just over 10 years ago now. We've celebrated recently our 10-year anniversary with a very specific aim to create spaces where women can explore what does it mean to them, to each individual and to women collectively to be leaders in our current world. And I say current, but of course it's changing rapidly, constantly, all the time. And we are living currently in very turbulent times where what we had thought was a bit of a dinosaur model of leadership was on its way out, has now resurrected its head. And it won't come as a surprise to us, I'm sure, those of you on this call, to know that we now live in a world where there are more dictatorships, more autocracies than there are democracies. So I give you that tiny little snippet of context because although we create spaces specifically that are brave, safe, accountable for women to explore, that's our niche, of course, women form a very important majority part of the human population, and we we all work in service to making better workplaces, better world for all. So there is a wider context and a wider remit, if you like, to the work that we do. Today's webinar is part of our series that we've been doing on power and purposeful leadership. And as Liz said at the beginning, we want to begin to open up, not all the time, but open some of these webinars to men as well, of course, because we're all hopefully here allies in this work, if you like, to make workplace healthier, happier, more thriving workplaces and contribute to the world. Liz will be outlining the drama triangle in a moment, but I suspect it's familiar to all of you. And if not, it's this idea that many of us get caught up in what we call the drama triangle. And today is about how to understand it a bit better and how to step out of it. More importantly, how to step out of the drama triangle into your adult self. And this is a critical tool in the face of what we call hard power that we're seeing a lot of today, which comes from places of persecution or domination or win-lose places. And what we're looking at constantly is to build our repertoire of somatic, mental and emotional and spiritual techniques that enable us to really tap into the deep power, what we call soft power, that is strong, flexible, adaptable and effective. So we hope that you will leave feeling just that tad more courageous, a tad more, a little bit more resourced, more connected and more energized. So over to you. Oh, I just should say a little bit about psychological safety. Just we operate under those rules of please only share what you're comfortable with. We are recording this, but we want to create a space where people can feel free to share as openly as you wish. So take care of yourself and let's show care and attention to each other. Liz, over to you.
Thanks very much, Hetty. So I'd like you to, as the way we work is very experiential. I'd like you to take a moment to think about a time. Could be something that's ongoing currently with you, or something that's happened in the recent past, or at some point in your working career where you felt caught up either in feeling like you were the victim in a situation, or that you were perhaps inadvertently stepping into being the persecutor. You were bullying people. You were caught up in that dynamic. Or possibly you found yourself in a role where you felt that you were having to mediate between people, but in a way that didn't feel particularly healthy or beneficial to you. So let's just take a moment to think about some examples that you have of times when you've experienced something like that. And maybe pop in the chat if you're able what that was like for you. What sort of feelings did it evoke? What sort of thoughts did it evoke? What impact did it have on you? or you may wish to just make some personal notes. So, took over all my headspace. Yes, can definitely relate to that one. Or powerlessness, frustration, feeling stupid and small, making you feel constricted, freezing, scared, feeling sick with worry at being the victim and ashamed, detracted you from achieving your passion and purpose. Guilt, when I changed from saviour to persecutor, yes. Colleagues constantly being helpless and jumping up to help, unable to speak. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of universal themes in this. We've all experienced this. We've all been in this place where we felt caught up in these dynamics, and we know it's not helpful, but and knowing how to step out of it can feel so difficult and challenging, and it brings up really uncomfortable feelings in us. So what we're going to talk about today is firstly what the drama triangle is and what it feels like to be in it and what some of the characteristics are. And then we're going to share with you some tools, both embodiment techniques and also ways of thinking and acting, behaving that will help you to unhook yourself from this pattern and shift into something that's more healthy and more resourceful. So that's our plan for today. I'm going to do this by illustrating on the flip chart I have here and talk you through the theory. And the drama triangle comes from the work of Eric Berne, who developed a psychological theory called transactional analysis. And his big insight was that when we're interacting with others, we're often in three different modes. One is when we're behaving in an adult way. So we're self-responsible and we're treating other people as being self-responsible adults as well. Another is when we move into a more parental mode, which can be either perhaps a critical parent or a nurturing parent, but it's a rather sort of top-down approach. Or the third mode is to be in child mode, where you see yourself as often smaller, less than. And he noticed that a lot of human interactions, people were operating from these three modes, but it wasn't very clear to others what was happening and which mode they were in. So, and he particularly observed that in the families of alcoholics, that they sometimes there was a particular dynamic that would go on between them, which he identified as the drama triangle, and then realised that actually this seems to apply to lots of people, not just families with addiction issues. So I'll talk through the model, and as you're listening to me, you can think about how you recognise this playing out in your own life, whether it's in your personal life, your work life, your communities. It seems to sort of show up everywhere pretty much. So it starts with three particular roles. Can everyone see this okay? So we've got the persecutor, the victim, and the rescuer. The persecutor tends to come from a place of I'm okay, you're not okay. So it's a slightly sort of top-down critical parent. We've all been on the receiving end of that, somebody being rather sort of critical, rather bullying. We've probably all slipped into that mode at some point as well. When we felt frustrated, angry, trying to get something done, and other people don't seem to be pulling their weight. It's very easy to fall into that mode. And the mindset of the persecutor is, I'm okay, you're not okay, I'll tell you what to do. So it's very top down. The persecutor tends to evoke a victim. So that's someone who tends to be more one down, more collapsed, and is saying, I'm not okay, you are okay, tell me what to do. And again, we've probably all gone there at times when we feel like everything's getting on top of us, and it tends to sort of collapse into a poor me, it's all too hard, it's too difficult, feeling shameful, feeling not good enough, and not feeling very resourceful and wanting someone to come along and fix it for us. So again, we've probably all been there at some point. And it's very important to distinguish between times when we genuinely perhaps are a victim. So if you're walking along the street and someone wrestles you to the ground and runs off with your mobile phone, in that situation you are a victim of something. But there's a difference between just being at the effect of someone else's aggression and taking on a mindset of poor me, it's not fair, I can't cope, which is what the victim mindset tends to be. So it's the I'm okay, you're not okay. Into this merry dance often comes the rescuer. So the rescuer will will say, "I'm okay, you're not okay, but I will help you. I will fix it for you." So they tend to might want to come in and sort it out. Say to the victim, "I'll take care of this for you. You don't have to do anything. I'll take on the persecutor." Or might try and help the victim, and the victim doesn't want to be helped, so they end up getting frustrated. So the characteristic of a rescuer is more it's doing things for people that they could and should be doing for themselves. So it's when you overextend yourself and do too much for someone else, such that when helping becomes unhealthy. And speaking as somebody who's worked as a mediator for the last 30 years, it's a lifetime's work of to find the appropriate balance of where our help is appropriate and isn't disempowering other people. So if you're thinking of this in a work setting, one example might be, say you're working in a team and your colleague Jane comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm having such a tough time. Jim's being really mean to me. It's not fair. I'm fed up." Meanwhile, Jim comes to you and says, "Oh, for goodness sake, Jane's such a snowflake. I don't know, these Gen Zs, they just can't pull themselves together. What are we going to do?" You might think, "Oh, actually, I feel quite sympathetic. I was once in that position where Jane is." And I'll say to her, "Right, don't worry, I'll take Jim on for you." So you go and take Jim on. Jim argues back, you start arguing with him, then you start feeling put upon and hard done by. So you decide to go and say to Jane, "Look, I'll coach you to help you assert yourself with Jim." And Jane says, "No, it's just all too hard. I can't do it." So you end up getting really frustrated with her. So the whole merry-go-round goes round, and everyone flips from being the victim to the persecutor, to the rescuer, and back. And it's all exhausting. So what we have is sort of parental tones up here. So we have a parent, and then we have the perhaps unhealthy, adapted child down here. We've got no adult behaviour in all of this. So let's, before we start talking about how we might sort of deal with this and how we might step off the merry-go-round and help other people to step off the merry-go-round, let's take a moment to hear some reflections about how you're relating to this. Perhaps which role do you tend to go to under stress, and what has your experience been of this sort of dynamic? Where have you seen it show up in your workplace or your families or your communities? So I see here from Patricia, a colleague constantly being helpless and I jumping in to help and feeling frustrated and angry. Yes. Stepping in with the manager who was bullying their team and in the end was turned on me. Yes. Feelings of righteous outrage and others damaging me.
If you use the hand symbol,
Yep.
so we can spot you, it'd be lovely to hear some voices in the room as well.
Hmm.
Brings it alive as well.
Good idea.
So feel free just to, or raise your hand, but can't guarantee to spot you. Was that Marieka? Did you raise your hand? Yes. Unmute and tell us, speak to us.
Yes, for me, it's the rescue part is really my first nature. When I'm under pressure in family stuff, then I'm going to the victim. Then I'm going to be the little child.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's good to, it's very helpful to be able to recognize. So Veronica, you've got your hand up if you'd like to unmute. Yeah.
Yes, I think for me, I noticed it a lot more in the family with my children growing up, my husband and my eldest son. We like personalities and very strong opinions.
Mm.
And I would find that I want to step in and rescue. And I realized that really didn't help because they both got fed up with me then. So the rescue, as you say, became the victim. So I definitely learned when they started talking to just leave the room.
Yeah. 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 Stephanie.
I just was looking at what Hetty wrote in the chat there about the passive aggressive thing. So my kind of victim status went from the child, the lost, the very sad and like disempowered to just really angry and passive aggressive, and then like trying to co-opt other people into my perspective. So trying to like undermine the persecutor quite by like trying to get other people to take my status as well. And I'd been in that for a really long time.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yes, Patricia, and then Jane.
I recognise the rescuer, and more so in a professional capacity as a coach, I recognised my inclination to rescue, and especially when there was something going on and had to keep pulling myself back. But once what I felt was once I recognised it, it opened a whole. Once I recognised it in myself, it opened a whole new world to see it in other people as well.
Yes.
So
yeah, I think most of us who are drawn to some sort of helping people development role often have a strong rescuer part that we really need to work on and get in check. Yes, Jane, let's hear from you.
Hi, yes, I have flipped between all three positions, but in my current role as someone with line management responsibility for a number of staff, what I observe is that I can start off as a rescuer, and when things work well, I'm feeling great, but when they don't, I can easily turn into a persecutor because I feel frustrated. I feel that the recipient isn't working hard enough, or alternately, the person I'm trying to help is thinking, oh, what Jane is doing, it isn't working, and they can actually become the aggressor. And that's just a particular pattern that I've observed.
Yeah. We tend to flip around from one to the other. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for those shares. I'm going to hand to Hetty now, who's going to help us sort of bring this into the body now and start the process of how do we work with these patterns so that they don't take us over.
Thank you, Liz. So many of you, maybe most of you here, will be familiar with the way we work, but this idea beautifully captured by the title of a best-selling book, a best-selling mainstream book published by Penguin, no less, certainly in the UK and the US, called The Body Holds the Score, by a now very renowned psychiatrist and body worker and yoga teacher and many, many other things, trauma therapist, called Bessel van der Kolk, a Dutchman who went to live in the States and has been really at the forefront, along with Gabor Mate, another pioneer in this field, of really reshaping and opening up our ideas of trauma. And in the process, away from this idea of a sudden, singular, one-off event, to understanding not only how our bodies hold in our body systems, whether it's our nervous systems, our muscles, our soft tissue, and our digestive systems, for example, we hold the memory of many things that happened to us in the childhood, but also we're porous human beings, and so we're constantly absorbing what's happening in the world around us. And so if we work in very aggressive, full-on, very stressful workplaces, this obviously impacts on us. We know this. We know it makes sense. We can't sleep, or we get frustrated, or we fall into these sorts of patterns. So the converse is also true. If we work with the body, it's like the royal road to quick change, because the body doesn't sit there thinking, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, and so on. Once it starts to feel safe, and that safety can be built from within, we can shift the way we act and react in the world actually much quicker than we think. So what we're going to do is just give you a little taste of this. This is threaded through all of our work, and if you come on our programs, you'd get you'd see how this is absolutely central, and everything we do is built around building the inner power within the body. And this is another way to put this, is that sense of confidence that the body feels. I'm here, I'm alive, I have agency. And I have agency is a critical thing for the body to feel, because so often in childhood we don't. We're small, we're little, we're at the beck and call or the authority of parents, teachers, etc. but we need to regain that sense, that deep sense. So let's experiment. I'd like you to think back again to a recent, hopefully recent enough for it to remain vivid, a time when you were either finding yourself feeling a victim, whether you were a willing victim. I don't know whether you're familiar with Winnie the Pooh, a famous English story, and the donkey in Winnie the Pooh is called Eeyore, and he's the ultimate symbol of the victim, with his head down and that feeling of, well, I knew nobody would give me a birthday present, that sort of sense of victimhood. Or it might be that you feel that sense of resentment and boiling, feel trapped as a victim. Or maybe more vivid for you is a time when you dropped into your bullying position and you found yourself somehow in a corner where you were bossing someone around, and there's a bit of you saying, "Oh, this doesn't feel good. This isn't right," but you persevere nonetheless in your bullying control, telling people what to do and bossing them around. We've all been there, right? Very often this comes from anxiety. Or the third position, you find yourself once again weighing in, saying, "Oh, no, we can't have conflict here. Let's rescue this situation." So just take a moment, and as you bring to mind the vivid situation, it could be either one of the three positions, start to feel it in your body. So take your attention now to what happens in your body. How it happens to your breathing, first and foremost. Is it shallow, or does it go deep? Does it speed up? Or do you sort of hold your breathing all up here and it's kind of tight? What happens in your muscles? Where do you start to feel either constriction or that itch to move, perhaps to escape, which can feel like a tight spring? We often feel that, or people often feel that in their legs, their leg muscles, that sense of poised for action, ready to escape. So what's happening in your muscles? Where do you feel it? Take a little trip around your shoulders. What's happening in your shoulders, your legs, your pelvic area, your stomach, your chest? What's happening in your stomach? Our guts are the most wonderful feedback system, super intelligent. There have been a raft of very popular books explaining to us how smart our gut system, our intestines, our guts are. So what's happening in your guts as you reconnect with this uncomfortable situation? And if you feel like it, just put a little word in the chat, what happens at a body level. So that's the muscular level, that's the body systems level as well. Stomach, gut, breathing. And last but not least, what's happening to your thoughts? Do you have wide attention? Are you kind of looking for the escape hatches? Or do you become very small and focused on this nasty person that's forcing you to be how you don't want to be? And very often in situations where people are beginning to put in the chat, thank you, tightness, very often we contract. The moment we feel a sense of threat or distaste or feeling trapped, the moment all of these come under the banner of threat, we contract. We either contract ready to fly, ready to fight, or ready to freeze, or even a fourth category that we're talking about more and more nowadays, ready to fawn. Fawn. For the non-first English first speakers, fawn is the name that's given to the baby deer, but it's also a behaviour which says, "Oh yes, I'll do anything you ask." And we're seeing a lot of this right now in the politics. I was going to be more particular, but let's call it global politics at the moment, where people are rushing to sidle up to, agree with, be on the good side of the dictators who are in power, or those with the most power. So that fawning behaviour can leave us feeling very disgusted, or somehow we've betrayed ourselves. So getting in touch with that, the contractions, the tensions, many of you have put some great comments in the chat. Let's flip it. So this is our golden nugget. And it's very simply called centering, and it comes from the work of a woman called Wendy Palmer, Palmer, who was a black belt in Aikido. Aikido is a non-violent Japanese martial art. And she was a black belt, and Aikido, as all the Eastern martial arts, is all about flow, not force. It's all about how we use energy, not how we block it or come up against it. Thank you, Liz. And she felt that the techniques that she was learning were so useful. What could she, so she devised a methodology that could be translated, if you like, some of the principles and methods that could be then used in ordinary life for leaders, for coaches. And she called it leadership embodiment, and we commend her site to you. And she's one of the strands of the work that we do. So let's use her basic technique. If you put your feet on the ground and have a sense, it may mean you have to stand up. So just putting your feet and feeling the ground beneath your feet, whether that's carpet or tiles or wood or concrete, doesn't matter what it is, but know that there is ground beneath your feet, and feel free to stand, absolutely, if you prefer to. And this is not a meditation, so we encourage you to keep your eyes open because we want you to use this technique in everyday life. So your feet on the ground, now pay attention to your breathing. All you have to do is bring attention to your breathing, as if you were watching an interesting insect flowing in and out of a room. Just notice, what is your breathing doing? And notice what shifts the moment you pay attention to it. And now the invitation is to imagine. So we're now bringing our imagination in. To imagine, as you breathe in, your breath travels up your spine. So you breathe in and you just grow a little bit taller. It's not a stretching, straightening military exercise. It's simply allowing the air into the vertebrae and you grow a bit taller. You pause at the top, and as you breathe out, imagine the air flowing down the front of your body. A bit like a waterfall. It could be a gentle waterfall or it could be a whoosh. Wherever you're at is fine. I like to imagine it gently flowing out of my body because with that gentleness, my chest expands, my gut relaxes, and on, down, through my pelvis, my thighs, and into the ground. In your own time, keep doing that breathing of up your spine, connecting with your strength, your integrity, your dignity, growing straight and tall. Amazing piece of technology, the spine. And pause at the top and then breathe out. And with that, we open, we welcome. And that can be counterintuitive in the face of threat. So we have to very deliberately be generous. We're opening ourselves to connection, to compassion, to reaching out, to collaboration. Let your shoulders slip down your spine. You don't need them to hold you up. And now bring to mind, again our imaginations, something or someone that makes you smile. And allow that smile just to loosen your jaw. It may be a big beaming smile, or it may be the ghost of a smile, a gentle smile. Just whatever fits with who you are, your personality, and where you're at today. But just notice what happens as we bring the smile in. And last but not least, get a felt sense of the truth that who you are is bigger, broader than the perimeter of your flesh and bones of your body. So each of us radiates, has an energy field around us. It's just straightforward physics for those who are not scientists. And it's 360 degree. So imagine that sense, that energy field. Some of you might like to think of a bubble or a sense of radiating out 360, above you, below you, sideways, front and back. As if you're filling a bigger space than your actual body. Good. As you enjoy this reconnection with your body, now once again, bring the situation to mind that you started with. The situation that took you out of balance, that made you behave like a rescuer, a victim, or a persecutor. Bring it to mind again. And from this more centered place, Just notice what might be possible, a different reaction, a different response, a different behaviour that might be possible. We are in the realms of possibility. So what feels different? What feels possible? And notice what happens to your vision, your sense of vision. And those of you who do have your eyes closed, you have an inner vision. As you look at the scene again, has it narrowed or has it become wider? Are there more possibilities on your horizon and within your space? So let's stay with that for a moment, if you wish. But those of you who'd like to comment, just either raise your hand, unmute, and we'll take some of your comments. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Look at the second screen in case I'm missing anybody. There we go. Lots of comments in the chat. So we've got lots of comments about how the stuckness, the tension of what it felt like when we're in our reactive space. Let's have some comments about just maybe something very small. So able to respond, tension released. Thinking of people who make me smile was lovely. They felt like allies. Thank you, Kath. And that's something that we work a lot with, that we are not alone. We often feel alone in difficult or negative situations, but we can summon our allies, our posse. Wendy Palmer was American, the posse that follows the sheriff at any time. Simon, thank you. Feeling less at effect, yes. So less triggered, reactive, absolutely. A wider view, bit of distance between me and the emotions. Excellent. More power in imagining a bigger self, definitely. Clarity. So our thoughts can often become clearer because when we're centered, of course, our cognitive function, our capacity for discernment stays online. When we're under threat, we don't need that. When we're under threat, the body is primed to survive. And so our cognitive function steps down. Liz Gould, I step to one side physically, different stance, less entangled. Absolutely, very important in the work that we do. Thank you, Liz. You wanted and felt more brave and to be honest. So thank you. I felt calmer, Jane has put, more compassionate. That capacity for empathy, which doesn't mean you agree with the other person necessarily, but you might just introduce a glimmer of, I wonder where this person is coming from. That's the curiosity bit. Maybe they've had a bad day. So a little bit of compassion could shift the situation radically. Great. I'm going to hand over to Liz now to flip the drama triangle and take us to the next stage.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. So I think, thank you, Hetty. And I think what that embodiment process reminds me is that when we're under stress, when we're in one of these roles, persecutor, victim, rescuer, and when we contract, we become separate. And we see other people as separate from us and a threat in some way. It's our threat system that's activated. And when we center, we shift out of that either sort of one down collapsed posture or the up rigid controlling posture. When we center, we remember our interconnectedness with everyone and everything. And then rather than seeing other people as a threat or a danger to us, we're in a dance with them. And maybe we've got a moment's difficulty that we need to dance through, or maybe someone's trodden on someone's toe in the dance, but we're still in the dance with each other. We're still moving together. We're still connected. We still see their humanity, and we still hold on to that sense of humanity. And that's one of the key differences, really, that's so important. So what we're seeking to do is to shift from a sort of either parental role or a mode of top down or a child role of one down to the adult space. So how can we have an adult communication? And the way we shift this is firstly shifting it in ourselves. So if we notice we've been tripped into the persecutor, the victim, or the rescuer, it's catching that, disorganizing it, and coming back to centering so that we're in our adult selves rather than a fight, flight, fawn, freeze mode. We're in more of a flow state. And then the next thing is, how do we shift? How do we help the other person shift as well? And once we center, then the persecutor, we have the ability to transform the persecutor into the challenger, which is the person who can be assertive, who can set boundaries, who can question and perhaps speak up when there's some groupthink going on, and be courageous. So it's that part of ourselves that can be, can be assertive, boundary holding, courageous, willing to speak against the consensus, the prevailing ideas. So we need that part in us, but it's finding the healthy part rather than the unhealthy part. So that's one of the first shifts, the persecutor becoming the challenger. For the victim, because this is the child place, often what's locked up in the child is the creativity, and it's the ability to play. The child wants to play and be creative. And so what we want to do is transform into being the creator, the imaginative, the playful part, rather than simply the collapsed victim who isn't taking responsibility. And then finally, with the rescuer, it's rather than I will fix this for you, it's I will walk alongside you and support you to resolve this for yourself. So it's much more the coach mode. So if you've managed to find your way back to your adult self and you're interacting with someone who's maybe still stuck on the drama triangle, here's some strategies and ways of dealing with each of the different roles. So firstly, with the persecutor, the strategy is to get them to be specific. And one of the ways that we'll notice that someone is probably stuck in persecutor role is they'll talk in big generalities. You always, you never, high level judgments. It's very general. They don't speak in specifics. So asking them to be specific. Okay, so you say that I'm unreliable. Please, could you give me some examples of what you mean by that so I can know what the behaviour is you're concerned about. So it's getting them to be specific. Don't let them get away with generalities. And often the feeling with the presenting behaviour with the persecutor is often anger, but often inside they feel quite sort of lonely and afraid. And so there's this rigid facade that gets acted out. But if you can also have some empathy for probably what's going on inside them, which is usually quite a lonely, scared, separate place, and respond to that rather than the presenting behaviour, that can help to disorganise and take down that persecutory behaviour. Okay, you're my boss, you're being really on my case, and you're probably under a lot of pressure from your boss to deliver by a particular deadline. Let me have empathy with that. Okay. The victim, often what the victim wants to do is not have to take responsibility for anything. And the associated emotion that goes with this often is shame. So helping them see, where do you have power in this situation? What's your power in the situation? Because often they've been trained in powerlessness. So, okay, so how could you speak up for yourself? How could you assert yourself? Who are the allies that you can call on? What are the resources you have? So really getting them to recognise their resources and to act from that place rather than to focus on their powerlessness. And there is always some source of power that anybody has. So helping them see that, both see their power and then take responsibility and take the steps that they can. And then finally, with the rescuer, it's about getting them to recognise their own needs. And often when we've tipped into rescue, it's because we're trying to feel good by being a good person and helping other people, but it's often at the expense of ourselves. So helping them recognise, okay, what do you need in this situation? And what's going on for you? And what are your feelings? So helping them focus within rather than externally. Charlotte, I noticed you've got your hand up. Did you have a question or a...
Yeah, just a question and a reflection on the victim, trying to switch that up into that creator, and often if there's such serious resistance, you ask those sort of open questions, like you said, who could you call on, what resources do you have available? And I found at times that if that person is in such victim state, they can't even unleash that creativity to kind of, the answer is no one, I don't have anyone, and they're going to get more and more entrenched. And I just wondered if you had any wisdom for ways that you, again, don't rescue then.
Yes.
Stay in that kind of coach mindset.
Yeah. I think there's no hard and fast answer to this. And I think it's sometimes simply acknowledging where someone's at is really powerful. You know, this is a really hard situation, and you're feeling really stuck at the moment and not resourceful. Sometimes we just need to be with what is, and actually that the person needs to feel felt in that and through that, and that somebody's really with them in that place. And I think often coaching can have, with the action bias and the solutions bias in coaching, can have a slightly inbuilt rescuer, that we're trying to change something or fix something. So, and this is probably me speaking from a more therapeutic side, but I think that willingness to be with somebody in the discomfort can be really powerful.
Yeah, it makes me think about when I'm with my children. That's kind of, you know, when they're sort of so irrational, that prefrontal cortex is just not working. And the more I try and the best thing I can offer in that moment is just that compassion and stay with them. And I think it's thinking the same with that.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important point. People don't just drop into victim mode as a sort of choice, or, oh, today I think I'll be a victim. These are often very, very long-standing patterns from earlier, and somehow it's kept them either safe or they've got rewards from these positions. And one of the reasons the drama triangle is so well known is that it's so persistent. We see it everywhere, because that, particularly that persecutor victim thing, it's, you know, the victim almost, I know when I found myself dropping into being a bully, it's almost like it's irresistible, that desire to sort of kick the victim. And I think that it comes also from the sense that unless we're all out there fighting and doing our best and running at 100% per hour, somehow we're not going to survive, that we're not going to make it in this tough world. And as a boss, it can be really powerful just to say to somebody, yeah, I can see you're feeling really disempowered right now. You're feeling really low. It's almost like, you know, you're in touch with your victim mode. And, you know, let's take 5. What would you do right now to help yourself feel more resourced? It might be, you know, go and get a coffee and a croissant, something like that. It might be something sort of quite trivial, but something nice for themselves. Because if you put the responsibility back to them to tap into what helps them feel a little bit resourced, you're again inviting them to be more of an adult. It's just like when we talked. I remember having adolescence, and my daughter, I asked her to come down and help empty the dishwasher, and she bellowed at me from the top of the stairs, "You're always on my case. I don't understand it. It's not fair. I have to." She did the full victim aggression number. So I let it be for a moment. Then I invited her. I said, "Come downstairs. Let's have a conversation about this." And I gave her choices. I simply said, "Look, I'm going to speak to you as an adult now. Either I can empty the dishwasher and do all the work, and then you're going to have a tired, grumpy mum, or we all live in this house together. We can do it together. It's your choice." And she thought about it for a bit and rather resentfully helped empty the dishwasher. It wasn't a total victory, but it's the same principle. Every choice has consequences. Anyway.
So let me draw some of these threads to a close for now, as we're coming close to time. So this is a huge subject, and we could say so much more about it. It's been so rich hearing all of your observations and your experiences. I think the key messages we'd like to leave you with is that the first thing is self-awareness. So noticing when you have got caught up in the drama triangle, recognizing that you always will. We're human, it's part of being human. But catching that and using maybe the centering or whatever you need to do to come back to being your adult self. And so that's both at a bodily sense, the breath, the posture, the expansion. It's also a mindset of I'm okay and you are okay, even though we both have things to work on. Just maintaining that fundamental mindset of I'm okay and you're okay, rather than a top down, I've got to fix you, or a bottom up, please fix me. So keeping your mindset, so managing yourself, and remembering you can always change you. You are the thing that you have the most control over. And then secondly, if you find yourself in a dance with someone who really seems caught up in the drama triangle in one of the roles, thinking about the strategies that you can use to invite them to dance in the empowerment triangle rather than the drama triangle. So inviting the persecutor to be more specific and having empathy for whatever anxiety might be driving them. Inviting the victim to take responsibility and inviting the rescuer to focus on what's going on inside them and recalibrate to a healthy level of helping rather than an unhealthy overextension. So those would be our guidelines on how to work with this and how to stay with it. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. There's a few. Any final comments before I ask Hetty will wrap up. So Chandra's talked about non-violent communication, extremely useful tool for staying in your adult and being able to sort of name what's going on for you and make clear requests. So highly recommend. Tim's talked about, so I chose winner's triangle models, not one I'm familiar with, but that sounds great. Thanks.
It does. It sounds excellent, Tim. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Karen, how does one catch oneself before reacting? I think it's an ongoing practice of self-awareness. Sometimes almost like giving your roles little sub names and sub personalities. I can feel, oh God, I've gone into Eeyore again. I can feel myself feeling sorry for myself. Or I've gone into sort of, I'm trying to help everybody and now I just want to chop their heads off. I'm feeling so resentful. So giving those parts of yourself a name so you can recognize them and catch them, or noticing somatically what type of posture goes with it. So it's having it on your radar, catching it, coming back to center. So you're not going to eliminate this as long as you're human. You wouldn't be human if you were perfectly centered and adult the whole time. I see from Marika, you said an example. Let's have a look. One example to shift to challenger. So I think this would be probably using nonviolent communication rather than you're useless and pathetic. I'm feeling frustrated and disappointed because we had an agreement that you would deliver that report by X date and you haven't done that. So it's naming your feelings, it's being specific, describing the impact. So it's getting people to be specific rather than high level critical judgments. So both in yourself and inviting the other person to be specific as well. Okay. We're coming to the end of our time together, so I'm going to hand back to Hetty for our closing comments.
Thanks, and thank you to everybody for your excellent and interesting comments. When we start, one of the nice things about putting them all in the chat is we start to see almost, we can call it compost. We start to see all the little elements. We think, oh yeah, there's a whole world out there of people who are having similar experiences to me or have ideas that I can bounce off and share, and it creates a richness, which brings me to just announce our next webinar, which will be on the 16th of June at, again, 1600, 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. UK time, British summer time. This, we find, enables people from the US and other countries to join us. And the topic will be archipelagos of sanity. It's an idea I've been developing for some time, building on Margaret Wheatley's idea of islands of sanity, is this idea that things build slowly over time and that there are threads of meaning between all the different places where we work and our families and the different sort of environments and ecosystems that we're part of. And if we can start to weave and understand those red threads, we can hugely strengthen. It's a bit like, having allies and partners. We're starting a new anima group in the autumn. So if that interests you, these are small groups for women who are in the workplace to take time out once a month for a few hours. It's usually the last Thursday of the month, to share challenges and get useful feedback and so on, as well as tapping into it at a regular basis. The idea is the regularity of it with somatic techniques and so on, and to build a community. That, again, that sense of sharing and learning together. So please let us know and join the waitlist. We haven't got a start date yet, but it'll be sometime in the autumn. And last but not least, it's been an absolute pleasure to welcome some men to our time today, some I know, and some new faces and new names. It's been an absolute pleasure. And please get in touch, because we've been at this now for 10 years. We would love to expand into different areas and things. So if you've got ideas or thoughts, don't hesitate to contact us. And we're 1 minute early, which is brilliant. So let's end with a stretch. Let's do the same stretch that we began with, clasping our hands right to the roots. Feel free to stand. This gets your whole body if you want to. And just stretching out, stretching up, deep breath in, turn to the right, blow it out, back to the center, deep breath in, turn to the left, and let your hands, and just feel the tingle of energy going down to your fingertips. And I wish you a brilliant rest of the day, rest of the week, evenings, whatever time it is where you are.
If you want to unmute and say goodbye, you're very welcome.
Bye-bye. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.